In this video, we're going to talk about 4 ways that you can avoid committing emotional promiscuity before marriage. Hey everybody, I'm Mark from ApplyGodsWord.com, a place where we apply the Bible to your life. I have a whole nother video on Christian boundaries in Christian dating, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Most of the time when people think about boundaries in Christian dating, they think immediately about physical boundaries and not having premarital sex and things like that. What I think is often overlooked is the emotional boundaries that should also be in place before marriage, because marriage is more than sex. If you just think about marriage as every other relationship except there's sex in the relationship, you're going to be, causing a lot of problems with yourself before marriage, because you're going to get involved in things that should be reserved for the marriage bond. So to start, I think it's worth just defining what I actually mean by this phrase, emotional promiscuity. Just like sexual promiscuity, it's like when you go too far. When you do something that hurts yourself sexually, you've crossed the line and you've committed a sin, essentially. Emotional promiscuity is the same thing, except it has to do, obviously, with your emotions and your commitment and your conversations and things like that. So whenever you say or feel something in your heart towards somebody that leaves you wounded and broken afterwards, that's a sign that emotional promiscuity occurred. So how can you guard your heart against emotional promiscuity? Point 1, you have to first realize that there is such a thing as emotional promiscuity. In other words, you have to value and respect the power that emotions play in our lives. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times when we think about boundaries in Christian dating, we just immediately think about sex and don't have sex and don't do this physically and don't do that. And that's all really good and will be good boundaries for us. But a lot of times, those people who have put really strict physical boundaries in their relationship are often the most susceptible to an emotional promiscuity and going too far emotionally, because they really want to connect with one another, and since they can't do that physically, they end up going really far emotionally and talking about things that maybe they shouldn't talk about and sharing desires that is just too soon to talk about in the relationship. So the first thing, again, that you need to do is to realize how powerful emotions are, how powerful conversations are, and realizing that there is a line that you can cross even if it has nothing to do with physical intimacy. Number 2, speed kills. So a lot of times when emotional promiscuity happens in a relationship, it's usually paired with an impatience in relationships. People who cross the line emotionally are usually moving really, really fast in their dating experience with this other person. So I remember when my dad was teaching me how to drive a car, and one of the first things he told me was speed kills. And that always stuck with me when I'm driving. He says speed kills. And he made sure I knew where the brake was before he taught me how to use the accelerator. And that same thing is true in relationships. Speed kills. He made sure when I was learning how to drive that I knew with most accidents and crashes and bad things that happen on the road when you're driving a car are usually directly related with going too fast. And when the faster you go in a vehicle, the harder it is to control that vehicle. And again, the same thing is true in Christian relationships and just relationships in general. The faster you go, the harder it is to control what's happening, the more likely it is for a mistake to occur. If you've ever talked to somebody who's maybe been in a car accident, one of the most common phrases is, "It all happened so fast, I don't know what happened." And that same thing is true in relationships that go bad. It all happened so fast, I don't know what happened. When you're going too fast emotionally and you're just like don't have any patience, that's when a lot of lines are crossed that shouldn't be crossed until marriage. So one great way to protect your heart while dating is to work on patience. Make sure that you're taking the time to set a healthy foundation for the relationship that you are in or will be in one day. Point 3 is that sometimes emotional promiscuity is easier to occur over the internet. We live in a day and age where communication is really linked to technology, and that's not going away. And I'm not anti-technology. Technology is not the problem, but the way that we use technology can be a problem. So emotional promiscuity is really easy to occur over internet-based mediums, whether it be whatever social media platform you enjoy the most. There's so many out there, or live chats, whatever. By the time you watch this video, maybe it's archived for a few years. There'll probably be some other new app or platform that people are using. The whole point here is that when you're not in person and you're not talking face to face, there is a temptation to say things and maybe promises that you would make that you would never say when you're in person. People feel like there's less consequences when they say things over the internet. That's why people are so ridiculous in the comment section when you post a YouTube video or you post something on social media, and people are just like so rude. And it's because they're behind the safety of their computer or their smartphone. They would never say that to you to your face. The same thing can be true on the other side of saying things really good, so to speak, or too much emotion. They would never say those things face to face, but behind the safety of their smartphone or their computer, they feel free to say things more than they would normally say. One person might be really genuine, talking about the future, talking about love, talking about all this stuff they want to do in this relationship, and the other person just might be on the other end laying in bed playing games and just wants an emotional thrill that night. Another reason this type of communication is dangerous and can be hard to navigate is because it can be so constant. A lot of times we end up feeling closer to somebody when we're in a conversation with them 24/7 all the time on our smartphone. We're texting, we're commenting, we're sending videos back and forth. Like, it's a constant communication. You can have this constant flow of information back and forth between this person that you're talking to. And a lot of times you end up feeling closer than you actually are to that person because of the quantity of your conversations rather than the quality of your commitment. So let me say that again. A lot of times if you feel close to somebody because of the quantity of your communication rather than the quality of your commitment, that's when you can end up crossing emotional boundaries that could hurt you in the future. And number 4, if you want to protect your heart and avoid emotional promiscuity, you want to look at what type of friends this person that you're speaking to hangs around. So I have a whole nother video on 5 signs of a Christian player, and these are gender neutral. It could be a Christian player who's a man or a woman, but there are out there, and the church is full of people who are just playing emotional games. One way to recognize a Christian player is that the people they hang around. You might think that, all his friends are just that way, but he's not that way. Or all her friends are just really shallow, but she's not shallow. And it's possible, but more than likely, that person is just like their friends. Because you end up hanging around people that are like you. That's just a natural trait of humans. We end up gravitating towards people who are very similar to us. And a player is careful to guard their character flaws and their emotional games, because that's what they are. They're a player. They know how to play the game. However, their friends aren't going to be as guarded around you because they don't really care and they're not trying to get with you like that person is. So if you like this person and they're hanging around people with low caliber and low character, you need to be careful, even if you don't see those traits yet in the person that you like, because again, they usually end up being like the people they hang around. Well, I'm Mark from ApplyGodsWord.com. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe even share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, and God bless.